Hello, WiseUp listeners. I'm Anthony Romeo. I'll be hosting another fantastic episode of WiseUp, episode 1.3, Inspire Next with Hitachi. I'll be speaking with Steve Kenney, marketing manager of Hitachi Performance Cable Systems and Materials Division from Hitachi Cable America. Wow, what a mouthful, right? Personally, it really is, right? You know, personally, I work with many folks at Wise Components, a distributor partner of Hitachi Cable and Solutions, and I tend to consider Hitachi African. And I say that as being all positive, no negative, because the reason why I can compare that is, you know, many people don't realize how massive of an organization Hitachi is. Just like Africa, the continent, it's blessed with so many rich of natural resources, and it holds nearly 30% of the world's known materials. So it's like Hitachi. They operate in more than 11 business segments, ranging from information and telecommunication systems to construction machinery worldwide. I really, truly hope that you all found some enjoyment in our last episode, and I thank you all for taking the opportunity to listen up and wise up on this time. It's very important that you understand what we're trying to do, and explain how IoT, 5G, DAS, all these acronyms, what they really mean and what's behind the curtain. As I mentioned in previous episodes, we're on every streaming service. Feel free to look at Apple iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, or other streaming services that whatever you use, you can listen in. And I want you to understand that you listening out there, we've grown accustomed to that. We've taken advantage, I should say, of the gadgets that are in our hands in our daily lives. We don't care how they work. We just want them to work, right? And with that said, I've been meeting with industry professionals like Steve and trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out, you know, what's the foundation? How is the concrete holding up that building? Because it's very important that from IT or IoT that we all know how things are working. So on WiseUp, we're speaking to Steve and how Hitachi Inspire Next mantra has helped them come up with many solutions. And one of those, in particularly, one of the solutions that we're going to be diving into is Drybit and the benefits that it can provide into various industries. Now, I asked Steve to, you know, come on the show and have a chat with me and talk to me about all the wonderful things he's done along his career. But truth be told, we only have 30 minutes. So I'm not going to ask him, you know, what school he went to and how long he's married, but how long he's in the industry, where he's coming from, former life, and now present day. What is it that drives him? What motivates him? What gets him out of bed working for Hitachi, and what are they supporting as a marketing manager at Hitachi? So with that said, Steve, if you will, give us a little intro.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that fantastic introduction, by the way, Anthony. Well, first a little on Hitachi. Yeah, we are definitely we're a small slice of a very, very big pie. Hitachi is a global company. I believe they're 38th on the Fortune 500 right now with billions in revenue. But we represent a small segment. Just in the United States alone, they have about 90 different companies, and we are one of them. We're the only one that makes the products that Wise sells. So all those copper and fiber optic cables. Our facility in Manchester, New Hampshire is the only one that makes those cables. So just so everybody knows, but we do kind of have that big backing behind it and that big brand behind it, which is great. About myself personally, I've been with Hitachi a little over 15 years now as the marketing manager. Prior to that, I worked with a couple of datacom companies. I was a sales manager at one, and with the other, I was a director. I had actually started a datacom division for a large electrical contractor in New Hampshire. A friend of mine is currently still running that. So that company's been up and running for about 7 to 18 years now. So
wow.
I love that legacy. So I kind of look at things not just from the sales marketing side of it, but from the contractor side as well. As I said, you see my hand dirty. So
having a lot. I said it's safe to say that you've seen a lot of different verticals and you've touched a lot of different products that are out there in the market. and who's manufacturing what as far as your competition goes. So you've seen a lot of different things, and so it's a great way, to have your perspective on what it is that your company now, Hitachi, is trying to achieve.
Well, I've definitely seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one thing that I really liked, I first came into the industry, the very first person I worked for really stressed about working with quality products. The price wasn't a big deal. It was get the best product you can. That was a good value, and it's not going to let you down. And that's what we kind of built the company around. And when I left there and started the division with the electrical contractor, brought that with me. So I've always used well-known products and bought them through well-known distributors. That's something I kind of, once I went to Hitachi, so here's a nice brand and it's a U.S.-made product. So that's a home run right there. And then we obviously sell through authorized distributors like WiseUp. When we talk about products and quality products, and people ask what should I buy, or whether it be cable or connectivity or really anything for that matter, buy from a brand and buy through distribution.
Right. And we've had conversations about that in previous discussions. It's so important because, believe it or not, it's not just money that's being counterfeited out there. Those who don't know or haven't had the unfortunate pleasure of getting knockoff brands, they're not only less expensive brands out there, but there's also counterfeit brands. So buying from legitimate, reputable sources is what we're trying to achieve. As I point out, is an authorized distributor of Hitachi brand solutions, and we love partnering up with them, and we ensure the quality assurance from our ISO standards of ISO 9001, and partners like Hitachi, being not only reputable, U.S. made, but it's the fact that it's available is also a plus.
I have to go far to find issues related to counterfeit cables too. You can Google it. Actually, UL Underwriter Laboratories, they have on their website an area where they have basically kind of created a list of people or companies that have used their logo without authorization, which happens. But a good example, Home Depot had a large recall of some category cable recently because it was purchased from basically a non-branded offshore manufacturer, and it was misrepresented. What was printed on the cable in the box was not, in fact, what the cable was.
Right.
It's going to cost them millions, and then they also have to go and have that product removed and replaced. So I'm not sure that buyer is with Home Depot anymore.
Yeah, right. And not to mention the ramifications that happen after that. People might hesitate, and Ken Langone has a phenomenal business at Home Depot, and they're not hurting for cash, but at the same time, I'm sure that some of your contractors out there that are going to Home Depot, they're, for a little while they were questioning, do I buy that type of cable again from Home Depot? So they probably not only lost those individual sales, but future sales as well.
Yes, absolutely. Contractors have enough challenges in this day and age, but no one's really ever gotten in trouble for using a brand name product through a known distributor.
Right. So, Steve, if you could, talk us in, what's the call to action with, we mentioned Drybit before, what's the advantages or key benefits that you could highlight both on the Category 6 and the Category 6A?
Sure. Well, Drybit's an interesting product. Having been in the industry for a long time, Drybit fills a void that has been there for almost ever. When you run a cable inside into a wet environment, for example, you're on the first floor, you got a concrete floor, then you got conduit that goes into the floor. That conduit, once it goes into the floor, is considered a wet environment by National Electrical Code. And as such, you really got to run cable that's designed for environments in it. So you typically run an outdoor cable, gel-filled, outdoor cable through the conduit, then come up, stub up someplace through the conduit. And then you'd have to transition over to the appropriate indoor cable, whether it be plenum or riser. And that's per National Electrical Code as well, because the outdoor cables are made with certain materials that won't allow them to pass the appropriate indoor plenum or riser burn tests that we have to do for our cables.
Right.
So plenum cables use different materials than riser cables, and they have to have certain characteristics. So what you've always had to do is transition from that outdoor cable to the indoor cable, and somewhere in the wall, someplace in the ceiling, is a transition point where you'd have to have either some type of punch down or a plug to jack transition or something. So you'd have that space there, and there really wasn't a solution for that until we came up with Drybit. And what makes Drybit unique is it's a UL verified. So our category 6 are UL verified Cat 6, and our 6As are UL verified 6A. And it's also UL listed CMP. So as a platinum rated cable, it can go anywhere in a facility. So this is a cable that's waterproof, can go down into that conduit, come up, and then continue on anywhere in the building. So you don't have to have that transition. And what the big fact, go ahead.
No, I think we were saying last time we were saying how it's not only helping the contractor from the install position, it's also helping the design engineering and/or consultants that have to now design a call center or a data center or a healthcare facility. All additional part numbers are needed, or the length of cables that you might need for one versus another. Now you're just doing one straight run. Utilizing Drybit versus, Lennon and Riser and all these other, connecting points, or finding the connecting points that we have to, tie that in. So from a design implementation, from the design side is one facet of it, but then you talk about the installer, and now the installer is only calling for that one particular part number versus multiple part numbers.
Right. Yeah, there's a big advantage. Obviously, there's a savings when it comes to the labor associated with, dragging along two different types of cable, the consolidation point, the materials for the consolidation point. So there's a cost savings there. But from an end user's perspective, you're limited a point of failure. You're limited the space necessary for the transition point. And from a design perspective, we've had very positive feedback from the engineering world, the specifiers, because now they don't have to incorporate that into the design. They don't have to figure out where they're going to terminate this outside plant cable and then have it transition over the indoor cable. They don't have to worry about that. That's gone.
Yeah, it definitely shows that it has, key features that benefit both the designer, or I should say all, the designer, the installer as well, the end user, because we're talking about cost. The other thing I would add that, working with the organization, one thing that I find, being that you're in New Hampshire and we're in the Northeast, providing services, but as we said earlier, such a large organization, you're able to cover such it's almost like dealing with a small business to some regards, because you're accessible as a company.
Oh yeah.
Larger corporations.
Yeah. Sorry. That's one of the reasons you mentioned kind of what gets me up, in the morning. And yes, our facility is located in Manchester, New Hampshire. I go into the plant. Currently I'm working from my dining room table. But I do travel into the plant every day, and have been doing that for, like I said, about 15 years. And it's a family. We manufacture about 4,500 different products there. We are a 300,000 square foot facility. Everything is made there. But we can really kind of build these, we can see a need in the market and respond to it quickly. You and I talked about actually tours at our facility too, which is something that I do. We have those available there through Wise or through our regional sales manager. Those things can be coordinated, and they have to be scheduled in advance. So please don't show up to our front door looking for a tour.
Just we have I'm here for the tour.
And it has happened. So just making sure. But we have a pretty impressive facility where we make quite a range of products. We're talking about Drybit right now. We also talk about in your introduction about 5G and wireless. And Hitachi is one of the largest manufacturers in the United States right now of 5G cell tower cables. So we're making
I want to get into that. I definitely want to get into that with you, but I don't want to just miss an opportunity. When you had spoke about taking a tour of the facility with me last time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there are also credits associated to some of the tours that are set up. So, those for those of you listening, Dixie credit certification, CEC, RCDD, and other, take that into consideration. You're not only taking a tour to see all the many amount of products that Hitachi manufactures in a state-of-the-art facility, but you're also if you're in need as a design engineer or a consultant that is a designer as well that needs credits, that's something to keep in mind.
And actually along those lines too, we do have BICSI accredited training programs, some copper and fiber programs, a POE program that's pretty impressive. And those are generally given face to face, but we are getting some of those accredited for virtual trainings, so we can do them as a webinar remotely. And we just recently got our POE presentation approved for use remotely as a virtual presentation. These things generally, when they're done in that format, they may be like a 1 credit type of presentation, but the content is still pretty good. And we do put out content. We want it to be something new, something interesting, something that you haven't heard in 17 other presentations,
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. No, and that's good to know. And I'll just point out that, and I'll say it right this time, www.hca.hitachi-cable.com. All that information can be found on that website. And if you want to see some Hitachi videos and other products and solutions, you can go to the Wise Components website as well. But feel free to check out either. Both are very informative. But I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
I just want to go back to, we were talking about Drybit, and one of the things that I really am passionate about with Drybit is what it can do. There really isn't any other product on the market that has all of its characteristics. And there was a lot of R&D that went into this product. I can tell you that we have a test that's been submerged in our facility, some test samples for over 5 years now, that are completely submerged in water. We test them monthly, and UL comes in and does follow-up testing, because we do have a UL test, a UL verified test regarding performance while submerged. A lot of cables, and again, this is if you install the wrong cable in a wet environment, like a standard indoor cable, when it gets wet, you're going to have failures. And because of the materials that we use to develop this cable, it can be submerged in water and it's still UL verified. So you can run gigabit if it's a 6A, or 10 gigabit if it's 6A, or gigabit. Yep.
And again, you bring up a valid point that it's being verified, tested by third party. Underwriters Lab is doing this, so it's not just Hitachi saying, "Hey, we tested it, it's fine, it's great, it works because we said so." We have somebody else coming in and verifying the process, which is commendable.
That's an excellent point. We use UL for all of our testing, for both our flammability testing, which is the testing regarding CMP, Planum, or CMR riser. We also use it for our electrical testing, which is called verified. So when you hear people talk about verified products or listed products, verified is electrical and generally not a requirement by National Electrical Code. And a listing is required by National Electrical Code. Getting that listing allows us to print on the cable CMP or CMR, which is what an inspector is going to look for when they're in the building.
Right.
And we use one facility, UL. Some companies use two. Some might use different test labs. Not quite sure why you'd send different samples to different labs, but we send one sample to one lab, and they will separate those and take some for the flammability testing, and then take some for electrical testing when our products are verified for electricals. And again, when we send it to a third party and to get verified, the end users, contractors, I think they appreciate that they're buying something that has been third party tested and not just tested by the manufacturer, which is generally called compliance.
Every car manufacturer out there for the last 10 years has done away with used car and put certified pre-owned, because each one of them say it's been 54 inspection or 87 point inspection. So having that third party come in and say it's been tested, it's been vetted, it's been verified, it's something that we should pride ourselves. Should I lose you? So Steve, you talk about a lot of different things as far as the verification, the testing, and everything that Hitachi's doing to ensure that their product is not that they just say that it's a great product. Now, how does this apply into the different verticals? Is there one size fits all, and if so, that's great. And then, but really, what I'm trying to get at is with the way that they're building out facilities today, and even more so now with everything that's going on, the unfortunate troubles that we're seeing with pandemic. Right now everybody's working remotely. So now when they open up the faucets or the floodgates, whichever way the countries and states plan on doing it, when they let people back in these mixed-use buildings and these healthcare facilities and these classrooms, they're probably going to be thinking and taking into consideration some different designs on how they expand upon their campus environment or their office footprint. So, with Wi-Fi integration and all that, could you kind of touch on that for me and explain to the listeners?
Well, certainly everyone's use of wireless devices has increased, and not only has the quantity of wireless devices out there increased, but what we're pulling through those devices has dramatically increased. Everyone has a smartphone now, so everyone's pulling down video and among other things. So bandwidth has increased, and it's also expanded beyond just the physical footprint. We talked a little bit about the current situation and social distancing and things like that. But what's happened is that footprint of Wi-Fi has now crept beyond the border, the walls of the building, and for colleges and universities, it's been the case for a while, but for other facilities, hospitals, like that, it expands outside. People expect their device to work almost everywhere. Right. Whether you're in a parking garage, parking lot, if you're near a hospital, you want to have connection. So these facilities have to extend their Wi-Fi footprint, and to do that, they have to cable up significantly and increase the number of access points they have out there. And we spoke earlier about Drybit, and Drybit's a great product to use to increase your footprint beyond the walls of the building, because it has that quality of being an outdoor rated product and can also come in and go into a plenum environment. So and one run, if you will. And it's a cable that can be, it can go outside, get some UV. It's UV rated, so it can be lashed outside, and it can go and get in wet environments and stay in wet environments and function all the time. And that's another thing too.
Yeah, very versatile.
Yeah, it has to be. We talked a little about UL and third-party testing and a product like Drybit. These cables have to work all the time. So by having third-party verification of their electrical performance, contractors, end users, specifiers, they can feel really confident that this thing, when they put it in, is going to work all the time, and it's going to give them 100% of the throughput that they want and that their customers want for all of their wireless devices. That's really more important now than ever, as we've seen.
Oh, absolutely. I can't see why, you would want to put two different cables when you have this option, and you have it in category 6, but you also have, it comes in category 6A, unshielded and shielded option. So it definitely has some versatility to it. And as I was saying to you earlier, one of the things that I saw from Hitachi's website was they were talking about, manufacturing in a whole approach in the industry 4.0 tech trends. IoT is something that has been leveraging manufacturing just in all encompassing. The gentleman that is MVP over at Hitachi, Martin Boges, and I probably butchered his name, but he was talking about how it's not only, for the connectivity, but it can help reduce costs, as we mentioned, the efficiencies and help improve that, as well as safety. And then what we were talking about before about compliances, you're talking about Wi-Fi integration, so now you have to have 2 category 6A cables to the access point. Now there's no splits, so you're talking about a whole bunch of different ways to deploy this one cable. And Hitachi, again, as I started the conversation, being such a enormous corporation and massive divisions, but you fall into the network solutions cable infrastructure. This is the whole point of the show. It's my introduction podcast, I was talking about the Wizard of Oz and how, all the magic was happening. Nobody really cared to look behind the curtains. So understanding how Drybit is able to go in different spaces and has one connection, plenum versus, plenum riser and an indoor outdoor rated, it's very important that we, touch on that to our listeners so that they understand when coming on and listening to Wise Up, it's not, hey, my phone works or my phone doesn't work. And why is that? There's a lot of companies out there that say they're the biggest, the baddest, and the best. But there's very small few companies that would stand behind it. So Steve, I mean, you talk about a lot of different things on as far as the verification, the testing, and everything that Hitachi's doing to ensure that their product is not that they just say that it's a great product. Now, how does this apply into the different verticals? Is there one size fits all? And if so, that's great. But really what I'm trying to get at is with the way that they're building out facilities today, and even more so now with everything that's going on, the unfortunate troubles that we're seeing with pandemic. Right now everybody's working remotely. So now when they open up the faucets or the floodgates, whichever way the countries and states plan on doing it, when they let people back in these mixed-use buildings and these healthcare facilities and these classrooms, they're probably going to be thinking and taking into consideration some different designs on how they expand upon their campus environment or their office footprint. So, with Wi-Fi integration and all that, could you kind of touch on that for me and explain to the listeners?
Well, certainly everyone's use of wireless devices has increased, and not only has the quantity of wireless devices out there increased, but what we're pulling through those devices has dramatically increased. Everyone has a smartphone now, so everyone's pulling down video and among other things. So bandwidth has increased, and it's also expanded beyond just the physical footprint. We talked a little bit about the current situation and social distancing and things like that. But what's happened is that footprint of Wi-Fi has now crept beyond the border, the walls of the building, and for colleges, universities, it's been the case for a while, but for other facilities, hospitals, like that, it expands outside. People expect their device to work almost everywhere. Right. Whether you're in a parking garage, parking lot, if you're near a hospital, you want to have connection. So these facilities have to extend their Wi-Fi footprint, and to do that, they have to cable up significantly and increase the number of access points they have out there. And we spoke earlier about Drybit, and Drybit's a great product to use to increase your footprint beyond the walls of the building, because it has that quality of being an outdoor rated product and can also come in and go into a plenum environment. So and one run, if you will. And it's a cable that can be, it can go outside, get some UV. It's UV rated, so it can be lashed outside, and it can go and get in wet environments and stay in wet environments and function all the time. And that's another thing too.
Yeah, very versatile.
Yeah, it has to be. We talked a little about UL and third-party testing and a product like Drybit. These cables have to work all the time. So by having third-party verification of their electrical performance, contractors, end users, specifiers, they can feel really confident that this thing, when they put it in, is going to work all the time, and it's going to give them 100% of the throughput that they want and that their customers want for all of their wireless devices. That's really more important now than ever, as we've seen.
Oh, absolutely. I can't see why, you would want to put two different cables when you have this option, and you have it in category 6, but you also have it comes in category 6A, unshielded and shielded options. So it definitely has some versatility to it. And as I was saying to you earlier, one of the things that I saw from Hitachi's website was they were talking about, manufacturing in a whole approach in the industry 4.0 tech trends. IoT is something that has been leveraging manufacturing just in all encompassing. The gentleman that is the MVP over at Hitachi, Martin Boges, and I probably butchered his name, but he was talking about how it's not only, for the connectivity, but it can help reduce costs, as we mentioned, the efficiencies and help improve that, as well as safety. And then what we were talking about before about compliances, you're talking about Wi-Fi integration. So now you have to have 2 category 6A cables for the access point. Now there's no splits. So you're talking about, a whole bunch of different ways to deploy this one cable. And Hitachi, again, as I started the conversation, being such a enormous corporation and massive divisions, but you fall into the network solutions of cable infrastructure. This is the whole point of the show. It's my introduction podcast. I was talking about the Wizard of Oz and how all the magic was happening. Nobody really cared to look behind the curtains. So understanding how Drybit is able to go in different spaces and how it's one connection, fun versus fun and wiser, and indoor outdoor rated. It's very important that we touch on that to our listeners so that they understand when coming on and listening to WiseUp. It's not, hey, my phone works or my phone doesn't work. And why is that? There's a lot of companies out there that say they're the biggest, the baddest, and the best. But there's very small few companies that would stand behind their products and solutions and put together, teams like yourself, to test and ensure the product is continuously. It's
right.
The same thing every day and twice on Sunday. So with that said, I really, again, thank you for, taking the time with us today. But one of the things I would touch on is, in addition to Drybit, what are some of the other things that you see at Hitachi that you might be able to share with us?
Sure. Well, we've been making cables since '86 in Manchester, New Hampshire, so we've kind of come through the multiple generations of products that are out there. And as electronics change and society changes and just demands by society change, we're keeping pace with that. And you mentioned IoT and you got to cable up all those devices. Everything that's in the Internet of Things is connected at some point. And we talked about what's going on currently in the world. And, for cleanliness and the ability to, say, walk into a room and not touch a light switch and that light switch comes on automatically. Well, that's happening more and more because the cost of sensors have come down and sensors are going in everywhere. But those sensors have to be wired. They have to be cabled, connected to something. So we're making cables.
Everybody says, and I'm laughing when I'm saying this because everybody says, "Oh, it's wireless." It's don't worry, it's wireless. You don't need cables. Or I got asked the question, being in the telecommunication space for 20 years, they say to me, because nobody knows what I do. I say I'm in the cable business, and they think I'm working for a TV network.
Right, yes.
So when I say to people what I do, they're like, well, how do you feel about everything going wireless? And I'm like, well, the antennas and layer one infrastructure. I went to my daughter's school not too long ago before this all happened, and it was a career day, and the kids just looked at me with blank stares, had no clue what I did, and the police that came, the police officer that said what his job is, and the nurse that came in and said what their job was, both phenomenal jobs, serve and protect. I respect them tremendously. Nurses saving lives, but the connectivity that supports their computer system, their walkie-talkies, their labs, all their different devices that they use in the precinct, in their cars, or in the hospitals is based upon what we do. And people don't know that. So again, it's my frustration why to have a podcast about, WiseUp, layer one infrastructure. It really does mean something because it goes into every vertical. And what Hitachi has done, and for so many years, it goes into every vertical.
And it's interesting too, is we could talk about Wi-Fi, and it is growing by leaps and bounds. But however, if your company exists on data, and realistically, every company now is data-driven company. That's just how you have to function today. But the companies that rely on it, they're connected on cables. I mean, you go into a large investment firm, some of the larger names that you see with commercials on television, and they've got traders, and they're the guys you call when you want to sell a stock or buy a stock. They're operating on a wired connection. They're not doing Wi-Fi because it's safer, it's more secure, and it's more consistent. Wi-Fi is great, but still has some shortcomings. And I think if you ask anyone working at those big investment firms, if they were to take away all the wires and just let their guys use wireless laptops, I think that might scare them a bit.
I think the SEC might have something to say.
Yeah. So there is definitely a demand for cables, and interestingly enough, with the growth of wireless, there's almost a greater demand for cables because, like I said, all these things behind that curtain that you pull back are cables.
Right. And that's what we're getting at, Stephen, to the point of, having people understand, and you pointed it out earlier, is, buy quality products from reputable sources. And you pointed out to me, your distributors, whether it be Wise Components or others, so there are no others, can be found on the Hitachi website. So, you can go right to the Hitachi website and see where you're located to get all your Hitachi solutions, whether it be in New Hampshire, Northeast. We love to provide service as we've been doing since '75. But with that said, I'm just blown away with some of the things that I'm learning from you today, and some of the things that are to come. And I look forward personally to taking a tour of the Manchester, New Hampshire site in the near future. Hopefully, I can get a couple of clients to come up with me, preferably when all this is past us and it's no longer physical distancing, as I've been calling it. It's not social distancing; it's physical distancing. And
right.
We're socializing right now with you, WiseUp. And I want everybody to know out there, stay safe. We appreciate the opportunity to be on your streaming service. We could be found on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, or other streaming services. I'm Anthony Romeo with Wise Components. You've been listening to Hitachi's very own Stephen. Stephen, I really appreciate everything that you've done today and taking the time and the opportunity to talk to me and our listeners about what you do as marketing manager at Hitachi. Your years of experience, as a cable contractor and then working in sales and working in the manufacturer, it definitely shows, the level of commitment that you're giving here to the products that you support. So thank you.
Well, that's certainly appreciated. And as an essential manufacturer, we are up and running, and we would love to have you up there right now. But I think we'll wait till it gets a little nicer, a little sunnier, and the conditions are a little better. But we'd love to have you at the plant. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing this again. Thank you again, everybody, for listening in. Bye now.